What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. The Bledisloe Cup has been underway in the midweek game, and we now have a winner in, I would say, controversial. It definitely gets controversial towards the end. The winner goes to the All Blacks, an incredibly tight game, 39 points to 37. You can see by the board just how bonkers this game was. Of course, we're going to go over the match report. As always, I do recommend you guys drop down in the comments your thoughts on the game. Don't take it out on the channel, because if you're not happy about the result, I have no influence over the actual game. A lot of people get real angry in the comments. Not my fault. I'm just here to report on it. So as we do in these match reports, we'll start off by going over the first half, going over some of the events, the highlights, thoughts on the game as it was going, and then afterwards we will go over the second half. There's a lot to talk about going on in this game, so let's start off talking about the first half. So to begin with, we're off to the Marvel Stadium, a stadium I don't know a lot about, but looked absolutely awesome. Roof closed, nighttime game over there, smoke from the fireworks filling up the stadium. Looked like a really good atmosphere. Bet it was a lot of fun there. First Bledisloe Cup to have been played midweek in 28 years. That's quite an incredible feat, but it looks like it was quite a good game to go and watch if you could attend. Now, this game got underway and was very one-sided for the first 15 minutes or so, going completely the way of the All Blacks easily for that first 15 minutes. The initial error going straight from the kickoff, actually. The first kickoff going, Australia not managing to catch it, getting bounced out, and Will Jordan carries the man who eventually managed to pick it up into touch, giving New Zealand a great platform to launch from within the first minute, where they actually managed to get a try just a couple of minutes later. Taukeaho in the 4th minute, getting over from the back of a driving maul. They obviously wanted to impose themselves very early on in this game, managed to get there. It did come from a few penalties, getting the sort of kick to corner, allowed the driving maul to be a bit easier from that initial line out, and a lovely conversion from Mwanga. So we went 7-0 up just sort of 5 minutes into the game towards the All Blacks, and to be honest, it didn't really slow up for that next sort of 10 minutes after that either. It just kept going the way of New Zealand. The attack was looking much better, penalties going their way. They could have extended it a bit more. Geordie Barrett actually missed one from long range, could have extended that lead a little bit out. Eventually Mwanga did actually manage to get us to the 10-point marker, coming in that 7th minute. That was Slipper jumping off the ball from the back of a ruck. It's just one of those things that happens. You just see the ball, you've got to jump on it. Unfortunately, was in the range for Mwanga. So, like I said, within the sort of first 10 minutes or so, we are 10-0 up to New Zealand. And I sort of began to sit back and I was thinking, oh man, this is going to be a bit of a walkover game. No, it doesn't go that way. The rest of the first half, or at least the next 20 minutes, right up to that 35-minute marker, just switched up completely, went all the way back to Australia, and Australia really began to get on the offensive. They began to launch their attack. The first attack for them didn't come until the 17th minute, and you've got to understand about just how impactful that first 15 minutes was. In terms of possession at the 15-minute marker, 92% to New Zealand. That is an incredible stat for 15. Normally you see those stats like 2 or 3 minutes into a game because only one team's had the ball. 15 minutes is a big deficit to come from, but they did manage to do well. They scored their first points in the 17th minute, coming from the boot of Foley. That stemmed from a penalty against New Zealand for a tackle off the ball. And then from this, they just began to launch more and more attacks. The attacks slowly began to look a little bit better. They were making more ground. New Zealand defence very narrow in this game for the first half. There was an awful lot of room on those wings. We definitely saw Australia trying to play it as wide, as fast as possible. Andrew Kellaway actually got himself over the try line in this first half, but was denied by being held up by millimetres, absolute millimetres, not getting the ball onto the grass. Stopped by Ioane and Mwanga in a double tackle. Absolutely brilliant. I thought for all accounts he got that score. We did have to wait a little bit longer. It didn't come till the 26th minute that we got the first try for Australia, coming in from the likes of Valetini, who had a great game. He had an unbelievable game here. Got himself a try. There was a number of jackal penalties for him, ball carrying all day long through. He had a really good game. This all stemmed from a New Zealand scrum, actually. The New Zealand scrum sort of collapsed on their side. They got bent back over a little bit, and Australia managed to win the penalty. Scrums were a little bit skewy in this game. By the end of it, we don't really get a lot of very completed scrums, to say the least. Led to a penalty. We moved down the field. Australia went for their own driving maul, did get held up, but Valentini just had that little breakaway hard man to stop from just a few metres out. As well as this, we also got a yellow card coming in for Dalton Papali'i in that 26th minute for actually stopping that driving maul, which I really think probably would have got to that try line had Papali'i not got involved. So I think the yellow card there probably justified. I'm still not really sure if I agree with this whole idea of getting a yellow card even if you concede a try. I kind of like the idea if you score a try, hey, you know, you got the points. I don't really like the double down thing, but those are the rules. So Australia came back into it 10 all by that 26th minute. And to be honest, there's not a lot of talking points about scoring for the rest of this game, but there's certainly a lot of action. I would say for the next 10 minutes or so, it really kept going the way of Australia. They really kept up the attacks. New Zealand at one point had 15 phases of defence just on their own try line. They managed to escape without conceding any points from that one, but really, really good attack from Australia. Eventually, the game sort of flipped on its head towards that 35-minute marker when Caleb Clark had an amazing break, made about 80 metres up the field, absolutely cut through everyone, beat about 5 defenders, just handing people off. Eventually was taken down by Tom Wright, and after being taken down, decided just to sort of lie on top of the ball. We see it every week, just to slow down, help your defensive line get back. However, did get pinged for this, got himself a yellow card. Now you'll see here there's 2 yellow cards at the same time. The next one coming in for Darcy Swain due to, in the following ruck after Caleb Clark went down, we saw Quinn Tupaia just getting over that ruck, trying to solidify it, and we see Darcy Swain coming round the side of the ruck really and just targeting his knee, bending his knee sideways. He went down in pain immediately. I don't know how he hasn't broken his leg. He was sort of hobble walking later on. It looked to me like he was going to break his leg from there. Really horrible encounter. Didn't really need to be done. Didn't gain anything from it. So a yellow card coming in for Swain there as well. So really tough. There are a lot of yellow cards this game. A lot of injuries in this game as well. A lot of people missing out. Now you think from there, 15 on 13, that potentially there was going to be more score. Not to happen. New Zealand did have one more attack going on in that second half, but a poor pass from Ioane going behind Bowden Barrett saw the ball drop down to the ground, and it was ended there. So a real shame for them. Did manage to get an attack. So we went in a halftime 10 all. Score didn't really change from that 25-minute marker. In terms of halftime notes, I said all New Zealand for the first 15, and then the next 20 minutes all Australia. Final 5, Australia were just hanging on for dear life, trying to hold out that man disadvantage for them. Australia started slow, but the set piece began to look better later on. Their scrum actually managed to counter the New Zealand one quite a lot on their own put-in. Really interesting to see against like a New Zealand scrum to have their own put-in go wrong for them. Both teams look good when in possession, but Australia certainly looking better in defence. It was one thing, as soon as Australia had hands on the ball, they were making good metres upfield. That New Zealand defence not really holding them out too well in this first half, bar that sort of string we had around the 30-minute marker. New Zealand struggling with compound penalties and handling errors. Yeah, this is one thing. Getting one issue wrong and then just doubling down on another issue. There was numerous times this game where they were up in the Australian half and 2 or 3 penalties on the bounce sees them on their own 5-metre line from absolutely nowhere. Just doesn't need to happen. I'm sure it'll be something they'll work on for the next game. On to the second half then, where it just begins to get a bit mental. It's really hard when you're trying to make these graphics as well. It takes a long time to try and sort all this out when there's games like this, but what a great game it was. So the first point's going on 2 minutes into the second half. Another try from Taukei'aho coming in. New Zealand hit the game hard. They were definitely trying to get some speed up. There was a huge counter ruck from Australia's possession that saw New Zealand manage to steal it away, spread the ball wide, and Taukei'aho, with men outside him, decided to go on his own big call, managed to barrel through about 3 players and get himself over for a try, again successfully converted by Mo'unga. So a bit of a repeat we saw in the first half to the second half. So again, that 7-point lead comes straight back in. Australia did manage to close it up towards the 50-minute mark. We see a penalty go over from Foley. This was another jackal penalty coming in from Valetini, who I just thought had a great game. This one was on Will Jordan. And at this time, they also had both the yellow cards come back on, as well as scoring that 3 from Foley. So realistically, 2 yellow cards, only conceding 4 points is very, very good. I was quite impressed with how Australia managed to handle this game, considering how many injuries they had before it, how many yellow cards were going on in this game, some of the discipline in the game. I did think they managed to hold up the game really well. Now, one of the big talking points that will go on in this game, which I'm sure people want to talk about down in the comments, is a 50-minute yellow card or 52-minute yellow card coming in for Jake Gordon. Now, this all started from a New Zealand maul, and it looked really, really good for all purposes, to be honest. They made really good ground, 20, 30 metres running with the maul. That's what you want to be seeing from your big forwards. Now, from this, they started a breakaway. They made good ground, and we see Jake Gordon get involved in the maul. He tried to get involved, and of course, he got a little guy running into 5 forwards, basically ran in, bounced himself back off, and then New Zealand went to ground. And the referee deemed this as him collapsing the maul, and I think I disagree with this one. I really feel like he actually tried to commit to try and go against this maul, but there's just so much weight going the other way. It looked for me on the replay like he bounced off it almost completely. He almost had no impact on it. And New Zealand actually brought it to ground themselves. So I thought that was a really harsh yellow card. I wasn't a big fan of that one. But this directly leads then to a kick to corner. The maul did get stopped, and eventually they spread the ball wide, and Mo'unga goes over his try. He scored a lot of points in this game, doing really well for him. Got his own conversion as well. So we see New Zealand then take that lead even further now. 24 points to 13, just after that 50-minute marker, and it really felt like it stemmed a lot from that yellow card. I don't really know if that was fair. Maybe if he hadn't got involved in the maul, they would have got a try from the maul. Anyway, hard to call that sort of stuff out. And then New Zealand just began to double down. It looked like maybe those floodgates had finally opened. We see a try coming in from Will Jordan. Finally decided to do something this week. He's had 5 weeks of being pretty quiet, to be fair, on the pitch, but finally get himself over for the try. Lovely little chip kick from Bowden Barrett over the defensive line that ran up so quickly. They went for that blitz. So much room in that backfield. Will Jordan manages to collect the catch and just runs it round two more people. Get himself over for a try. Again, converted by Richie Mo'unga. So at this point now, we're only 55 minutes in. It's 31-13. It looks, for all intents and purposes, that maybe Australia are going to begin to fade away from this game, unfortunately, but not if it was anything to say for Kellaway. Kellaway in this game just came absolutely out of nowhere. Get himself 2 tries in this game within the space of 5 minutes. The first one was just kind of against the flow of how the game was going. Momentum felt like it was all with New Zealand. The ball being spread wide might have been forwards. There was a call for whether it was forwards, the pass that did get to him, but it was a great line from Andrew Kellaway. Just saw him smash his way over, got himself over for a try. Conversion taken very quickly by Foley, just to not have that replay go on screen, because it did look a little bit questionable. Definitely flat. Let's call it definitely flat. So they pulled it back to 20 points to 31, so only 11 points down now at this point. Managed to close that gap a little bit. And then the next one, 5 minutes later, Whitelock jumping across in the lineup. Again, these compound errors coming in allowed Australia to have this penalty, move them further up the field. Andrew Kellaway spreads himself wide on that wing, makes a nice little dart inside 30-metre line. New Zealand defence looked a little bit jittery, didn't really know who each man was marking. They went for a 2-on-1, left the overlap. Andrew Kellaway cuts inside, goes over for a try as well. Again, another good conversion from Foley on this one. Foley had a really good game from boot, to be fair. So they pulled it back to Australia 27, New Zealand 31. Only 4 points in at this point from going from that massive deficit. They've pulled it all the way back now. New Zealand managed to spread out a tiny little bit from a penalty from Mo'unga later on into that game. Australia just began to have a couple of issues with just getting their defensive line a little bit offside. So they pulled it back to that 7-point marker when we see the try coming in from Pete Samu, which was an unbelievable try, to be fair. Him and Corey interlinking on the wing, passing back and forth, getting themselves round defenders. For whatever reason, again, we saw this last week or 2 weeks ago now. Defenders not just taking the man, even if they get the pass away, letting the pass go and sort of following the pass along. If you allow these interchanges, people will get down the wing, and we see Pete Samu going over for a try. Big man in the 72nd minute, still out running players like Will Jordan. So nice to see. So they pulled it back with the conversion as well. They managed to get it to 34 all, only 8 minutes on the clock. You think this game's going absolutely everywhere at this point. It's a fantastic game up to this point. When Australia get a penalty in the 76th minute, it's on the halfway line, out of range of Bernard Foley. Up steps Nick White out of nowhere and just goes, I'll give it a crack. Has a 50-metre penalty kick, gets it over the post. Australia take the lead, probably for the first time in this game, actually, now that I'm looking back at my own notes. Takes it to Australia 37, New Zealand 34. New Zealand, of course, have to do something massive at this point. They get their own penalty back in the 78th minute. You think they'll just take the 3, they'll go for the post, take the draw, and we'll move on to the game next week. They don't go for it. They go for the kick to corner. They go for the driving maul, and the driving maul actually gets shut down. Who else is it again? You've got Valentini just shutting it down, and then you have Foketi getting over and actually getting his hands on the ball, getting a turnover, and you think, well, that's the game there. There's only a minute and a half left on the clock. Nothing more to happen here. Wind down the clock, get that ball kicked out. When out of nowhere, the referee steps in. This will be the thing most people will be talking about for a long time, I think, after this game. The referee steps in and blows the whistle for time wasting, literally as Foley is pulling back his leg for the kick. Absolutely astonishing. I don't even know if there was a full minute between the clock being off and the time running again. He believed he'd sort of checked it on the clock and then said time on it had been a full minute. I don't know if I agree with that. And you really don't get to see a lot of these time-wasting penalties, considering how many box kicks we have that after a ref says use it, we sit there for another 5, 6, 7 seconds waiting for them to actually use it. Time wasting in this regard, big call. So New Zealand get the free kick, they get a scrum. Australia do manage to hold out the scrum really well. They hold out defensively as best they can on their own try line, but eventually there does become the rune, and we see Geordie Barrett go in at the corner, scoring himself a try and winning the game for New Zealand in quite a controversial way. I'm really looking forward to see what you guys thought of that down in the comments. Mwanga did actually miss that final kick. It was quite a hard kick, to be fair, from the corner, and you've already won, so I don't guess he didn't put a great deal of effort in. But in terms of this game, what a back and two game. I really thought in the preview video we were going to see New Zealand take this one a little bit comfortably, actually, and it really did not feel like that at the end. They really had to work from it and have a bit of luck from the referee just to seal that game out. In terms of the final stats for the game, possession 49-51. I mean, you can see how much Australia managed to pull that back from that 92% in that first half. Absolutely incredible. Penalties 11 to Australia, 12 to New Zealand. A lot of penalties in this game. We saw that with the yellow card balance. 9 tries in total, 4 for Australia, 5 for New Zealand. Yellow cards 3-1. Lineouts were pretty good. 11 of 13 for Australia, 13 of 14 for New Zealand. But scrums is where it really began to go wrong. 4 of 7 for Australia, 1 of 3 for New Zealand. Scrum's not really working the best for either team in this game. That'll be something they'll want to work on for this for the next game. Man of the match went to Taukeaho, getting himself 2 tries. I think that was maybe correct from the New Zealand side. I thought Mwanga's boot kept them in the game. I think if you'd seen Australia win, it could have either been Valetini or maybe Andrew Kellaway for just bringing them back into that match. I thought Valetini had a great game personally. But what a game that absolutely was. I feel really bad for any Australian fans watching this, because I'm sure that game feels incredibly harsh for you guys. But congratulations to New Zealand. It makes a bit of a difference having a midweek game. So hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. If you've enjoyed the match report today, guys, make sure to leave this video a like. And if you want to stay up to date with the games that will be going on the weekend as well, make sure you are subscribed just so you know when the videos go live on the channel. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.